You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. My name is Mo. I'm your host, and oh my goodness, it's been 3 months since I've officially done a podcast recording. Even though I did do that special recording for you all about the retreat back in July, it's been a bit, and I'm excited to get back. And it doesn't even feel like it's been 3 months. It literally feels like it's been a minute. I am so thrilled today to spend most of my time for this episode talking about this retreat that just happened in the last week. There is so much that happened and so much that I want to share. And I know that many people that are curious about what happened at the retreat, the process, what it was like, what I experienced, what other people experienced. And so I always try and do some sort of a podcast episode about these retreats so that if you weren't able to attend, you can get an idea of what went on and why you might want to be at the next one. So during this episode, we're going to talk about the experience. I'm going to walk you through the experience. I'm going to share a couple of clips that I actually have of the audio of when Kai Bertrand and Crystal Novak were speaking. I'm going to answer a couple questions that people have submitted through Instagram. And then I'm going to have two special announcements at the end. And then I also just want to get you a little excited and let you know that I have some amazing podcast guests coming up. In the time that I've been taking this break, of course, I still continue to meet people. And so, for example, Keisha Yokers, who came to the retreat and provided the breathwork session, is going to be on here in the next couple of months. So you'll see her. You'll get to meet a couple of other people that I've met over the last few months. And so I have some really awesome, juicy episodes coming up for all of you. So thank you for sticking with me. And I hope you had a chance to go back through some of those episodes that I've done over the last 3 years. I can't believe that I now have over 70 episodes. I hope you went back and checked some of them out. I heard from a few of you that you went and listened to Zach Ryder, the Breathwork Facilitators episode, and that really got you inspired to start doing some breath work, which is amazing. That's really the purpose behind this podcast, is to provide you with all of the things that I run into on a daily basis. I love to learn. I love growth. I love expansion. I love being in the present moment. And when I meet new people and I gain new knowledge or information, it brings me so much joy and delight to turn around and share it with you all. And so that's what this podcast is all about, is really introducing you to the people who over the years have absolutely changed my life and the practices that I've kind of sorted and filtered through. So I don't just share anything. I very much use my discernment, and I like to feel really good about what I'm sharing, meaning that I have enough. My intuition has said, yes, like, yes, share this. Yes, this is good. Yes, try this for yourself. So that's all part of the process of how I choose who to bring on the podcast and what to share. So I also want to share in the beginning here that I did not get much sleep last night, which is part of what I want to start off sharing. Actually, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I could not go back to sleep. So I'm on maybe 5 hours of sleep, but I'm so hyped right now, you guys, because before I got on here to record, I very intentionally picked up one of my crystals and I sat here, and I always pause for a moment before I record anything or get on a client call or anything. And I asked my guides and my angels to be here. And I also just put myself back into the energy of the retreat so that I could bring that to you. And so this feeling, this like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I'm having the best time ever. That was the feeling that was with me for the entire time. And so I very intentionally brought that with me to this episode so that hopefully through listening to this, you can feel a bit of this. So the last couple of nights, I have not slept much. Reason being, last night specifically, I woke up at about 4 a.m. from a dream. And I was in this dream with a friend of mine who I actually went to preschool and elementary school with. And I was saying to her, oh my gosh, I'm going to call her Sally. It's not her real name. Oh my gosh, Sally, I can talk to aliens. Have you heard? And she turned and looked at me in the dream and she was like, yes, you just need to use your guardian in order to talk to them. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do you mean? You can do it too? And she was like, yes, absolutely. And then we both sat down at a table and I looked at her and I said, hey, do you know Tom and I were born on the same day? and her eyes got wide like this, and then I woke up. Now, Tom and I were not born on the same day. However, our birthdays are just 3 days apart. And so I don't know why that came up or what that was about. But, anyways, now just listening to the dream and listening to me tell you about it, you wouldn't think that there was nothing scary that happened. There was nothing overwhelming really that happened. It was a pretty simple dream, but I woke up with this feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is something that we were talking about at the retreat, and now I'm having a dream about it. And so all of these, it just got me so, I think I was feeling the energy so high that I could not go back to sleep. So you're going to be getting an even better unfiltered version of Mo, which is truly, really the real me as well. So that's cool for you listening. Hopefully you enjoy. One other thing I wanted to share that doesn't have to do with the retreat, but it just happened in the last couple months. For those of you that have listened to some of the episodes where I've shared about my dreams or shared about different signs that I've received, I had a really interesting experience that I shared with the folks at the retreat. A couple of months ago, it was probably like 2 months ago now, I woke up at around 2 in the morning, and I heard something fall and that's why I woke up. And I was like, what's going on? Because we had the air conditioner on and the fan. And so Tom just sleeps through all of this. He does not wake up for nothing. And I wake up at the slightest sound, which is partially why I usually sleep with the fan on. But with the air conditioner on and the fan on, I usually don't hear anything. And so I knew that if I had heard something fall, it must have been fairly large. So I got up, went out to the hallway, took a look down the right side of the hallway, which heads towards the kitchen, and I couldn't see anything that had fallen. I didn't see anything on the floor because Tom has his Nerf mod table right there in the dining room. So usually, if something falls, I would probably see it. And so I'm leaning my head out into the hallway, and all of a sudden, as I pause, I hear this vibration, like zzz, going from behind the bathroom door. Now I've been playing around with the energy of the house and doing some feng shui things. And so in the meantime, one of those things I've been doing is always keeping the bathroom door shut. And so the bathroom door is shut, but I'm hearing this vibration and I'm like, what is going on? So I open the door, and this shower scrubber that I have, it's about this long, which if you're listening, it's maybe like 3.5 feet long. I don't know. I picked it up from Target. I had seen it like 6 months ago on TikTok, decided to try it. And I haven't really loved it, by the way. It's been okay, but it doesn't really help that much with the scrubbing. And so I have it just standing up in the corner of the shower. So it's like a stick with a little brush on the end, and it's very sturdy. The brush at the bottom is like circular and really hard bristles. And so I had it leaning up against the edge of the shower on the inside of the shower. And if it were going to fall in the shower, it would have fallen inside of the shower. And when I walked into the bathroom, it was in the middle of the bathroom floor and it was turned on. The other interesting thing about this is that on that stick, the power button to turn it on is towards the top of the stick and it's indented. Meaning, if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, like you can see my hand, it's kind of like cupped like this, and the button is on. You have to like literally press in order for it to turn on. It's not a switch, it's not easy to turn on. And here it was vibrating in the middle of the bathroom floor. And I was like, too tired at the moment. And also, I am used to and becoming more accustomed to energy playing with me. And so I knew, okay, this is either my grandmother or one of my guides trying to get my attention and just play with me. And so I turned it off, put it back in the shower, laid it on the ground, and I said, okay, guys, I'm going to bed. You can tell me about this in the morning. And when I went back to bed and looked at my phone, it was 2:22 a.m. So I wanted to share that story because I really believe that part of my mission is to build a bridge for people. So if you've been listening to these podcast episodes or you've been listening to anything around spiritual growth, you might feel kind of alone, like I did at many times in my journey, and I have. But the more I opened myself up to connect with other people and talk about these things that I was experiencing, the more I realized I was not alone. And so that's why I'm a big believer in sharing things like this, because normally in the past I would have been like, well, do people really want to hear about this? Is it going to freak them out? But no, people really do want to hear about this. And you might be able to relate or share a story of your own. So I wanted to share that. Now on to the retreat. So I have to say, I have never experienced a retreat where I felt so relaxed. Now, if you know my story, I've been organizing and facilitating retreats since 2017, I think was my first one. And when I first did retreats, they were for much larger groups because I was trying to gather together groups of admin in real estate. And so I really wanted to reach a lot of people, and I wanted a lot of different examples of operations folks from across different size teams in real estate. So I would have anywhere from 25 to at one point, I had 42 people attending a retreat, much bigger size. And I still think back to this and I'm like, oh my God, how did I do this? Not only from an energy standpoint, but a financial standpoint. I was booking a house and a caterer and the speakers and doing uh, all of this organization and taking a risk financially to make these events happen. And what I noticed about this retreat is number one, having it local here in Everett was so nice to be able to come home and sleep in my own bed. So I was able to conserve more of my energy and really go in rested, which was huge. I was able to go into Kindred Healing Space. By the way, you need to check it out. If you're anywhere near in the area, Kindred is amazing. I was able to go in there the night before and set up my stuff, which only took about an hour, but for those of you who do events, you know that that hour is precious. So the next morning, Friday, I was able to arrive by 8 a.m., did the last couple things I wanted to set up, and then I couldn't believe this. I was like, oh my goodness, I actually have time to sit down and meditate before people arrive. So I sat in the middle of the room and I don't even know if I'd call it a meditation. It was really just sitting in the energy and it felt so good. It felt so good. And that's what I kept really realizing over the weekend was, wow, this is different. This is a different feeling. This is easy. I mean, yes, it took work to make this retreat happen. It took a lot of work, but it also was a different kind of work. And then the actual experience of the retreat felt like flow, felt easy, it felt fun, it was joyful. And so I am taking that away as a major learning experience for me that when you are doing something that doesn't feel like work, that's when you know you're in the sweet spot. And so I was able to set up the night before, and then the next day, everybody started arriving. We did Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So on Friday, everybody started arriving around 8:45, and our goal was to start about 9 o'clock. And one of the other things that I really worked on myself with is being in flow more when it comes to timing. And so over the years, I've left and created more and more space between speakers and between things that we're doing at the retreat because in the past, I would pack it so tight that one, it's exhausting for everybody, and two, there was actually not enough time for communication between the events, between attendees. And so this retreat, I intentionally left more space, and I'm so glad that I did. And so we didn't start the first day until about 9:45 or 10, but it was perfect. Everything happened in divine timing and it happened for the highest and best good of all involved. And it seriously did. And I still had to, a couple of times, go through this process of telling myself to calm down and just go with the flow because I care so deeply about the experience and I care so much about providing people with the value that I said I was going to provide them with. And so part of that has to do with making sure that we have time to do everything that I wanted us to do and that I had said we would do. So it's this real good balance between knowing that what I have planned will happen when it happens and trusting that how it's happening is exactly how it's supposed to happen for the attendees and for me and the practitioners. So we started off, like I had mentioned that we would, with Kai Bertrand, the Hawaiian shaman who was with us. It was Kai Bertrand, Crystal Novak, and Enmei Mangels were our main speakers. And then we had Keisha Yokers, who was the breathwork facilitator. So Kai started off by, before we even got started, she cleared the room energetically. So her talent, her specific talent is removing negative energy from people, places, and things. And so she cleared the space, cleared the studio, then went through each of us, cut any cords that we had, any attachments, so that essentially we could spend the weekend in just our energy. Which, you guys, if you've never experienced this before, I highly recommend you meet with Kai to experience this because, like I've talked about with the emotion code, you never know what you're carrying that doesn't belong to you. And when you can finally come from a place of, oh, this is just me. This is just my energy. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. This is my energy. This is what it feels like. All of a sudden, you're able to recognize your baseline. And then when things happen and you get out of whack, right, and you feel emotions, and you're like, does that belong to me? You're able to better assess what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. And so grateful that she started us off from this really secure place. And so she did that. And then uh, I always like to start off each retreat by setting the guidelines and some ground rules for ourselves as a group. And I use these exercises that Brene Brown describes in a couple of her books that are just super simple and easy. I highly recommend them. If you want the specifics, you can reach out to me. But I believe that whenever you do work like this within a container of people, uh, even if I knew every single person on it at an in-depth level, I would still do this process because part of, I think, what makes my retreats so successful is not only the speakers and what they bring, but the container that I build with intention. It is extremely important to me that people feel safe. Now, I can't create ultimate safety for everyone, right? But what I can do is I can have intention and I can work with what I have around me in my environment. I can control the environment that we host the retreat in, the location. I can control and discern the speakers who are coming in, who I'm exposing my audience to or their audience to. I can set us up for success by creating boundaries so that people know when they've crossed a boundary or when they're getting close to crossing one. And so that's really important to me because once we know those, just like when you're working with kids, right? Once you know where the lines are and where the boundaries are, you can play within them with more freedom and you can feel safe. And so that's how we started. And then Enmei got started on her portion, and she spoke about the difference between instinct and intuition. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth on what the speakers shared because I didn't actually take notes during that time. I was just in the moment and present. Uh, but I will just share kind of blips and pieces. And then also, like I mentioned before, Kai and Crystal actually recorded their talks. And so I'm going to share like 2-minute blips from each of them so you can kind of get a sense of what it was like to be in that space. If you've never been in the space with Enmei when she speaks, oh my goodness, get in that space. Because I think what I want people to know about Enmei is that what I loved about her from the very beginning was she gave me permission to be in my joy completely again. And so she brings that to every retreat. And so we were so fortunate to have her with us for the entire weekend. Normally, she just comes during her speaker slot and then she'll head back out to do, whatever she's got next on her list to do. But she stayed with us for all day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it was such a blessing. She has a giggle that is so infectious. And she also shows you that you can do this healing work and be in your joy at the same time. And I think that's really important. And something that Tom and I talk about a lot is that joy is so healing. And this is important to me because as a kid, I would express really big joy. And when I allow myself to really be myself, I get really, really bright energetically and very, very joyful and playful. And there were different times in my life where I ran into people, usually at school, schoolmates, who would squash that in me and just make me feel dumb or silly or like I was being offensive. So they interpreted my joy as offensive. And so for a long time, I've really squashed that. And Enmei has helped bring that back out in me, and she brings that to everybody in the group. And so as she's talking about instinct versus intuition, she gives lots of great personal stories that she's experienced and really helps people to begin to understand, okay, when am I making decisions from a place of fear versus excitement versus, hey, this is something my soul really desires to do. So I wanted to have her start off the retreat because she really sets a great foundation for the rest of the weekend. So then we took a break and we went and got lunch. And this is the first time I've done a retreat like this where I didn't reserve a VRBO that we were all staying in, and I didn't have a caterer. So I was kind of like, how is this going to work? Am I going to like this? But I actually loved it because number one, everybody can go out and get whatever it is that they feel like eating. We all brought it back and we ate in the lunchroom together, and it was just far more relaxed. And so we came back to lunchroom and we're just chatting and giggling and laughing. And I had invited Badr Hinker, who's a friend of mine, to come by at lunchtime and talk about LifeWave. And so Badr got there first and started talking about LifeWave. LifeWave essentially I should have brought in, I don't have a patch. Well, I do have a patch on me. LifeWave is essentially these little circular patches that are made of crystals, is a very simple way to explain it. I'll be talking about them more here in the future because I actually just started selling them because I believe in them so deeply. And so they look like, let me see if I can turn around and show you. So hopefully you can see that. It's literally like smaller than the size of a band-aid and it's circular. And when you put the patch on your body, what it does is it essentially reflects your own light and your own heat back on you. So if you know anything about energy healing and Reiki, it's like having energy healing going on you 24/7, except for you only wear it for 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And so I wanted Badra to come by and talk about these because I've been watching her and her journey with Lightwave for probably 2 years now. And one thing I've learned about my intuition and about my body is that it speaks to me really loudly if I'm willing to listen. And from the very beginning, when I first heard about these Lightwave patches, I just got a full body yes. Yes, this makes sense. Yes, I believe this. Yes, this works. And so I knew that at one point I was going to invest in them for myself because I want to heal my varicose veins and I want my body to run as efficiently as possible when it comes to energy. The better my energy is flowing, the better my gifts will operate, my intuitive gifts, and also the better just I'll feel overall, right? And I knew I also wanted to get them for my mom and my dad. My mom was diagnosed with lymphoma like 20 years ago now, I think. It's been that long. Oh my God. And it's not moving or changing or anything, but I would like to get it completely out of her body. That's my goal. And then my dad has neuropathy in his legs and doesn't have hardly any feeling in his left foot. And so there have been some studies shown in the research that they're doing that it has helped with those things. If you want more information, I'm going to put the link to the free Facebook group in the description of this podcast episode. And then because I'm now selling them, if you want to go ahead and try them, I'm also going to put the link to my website where you can purchase them. And so Badr came and it was perfect timing. She put a patch on all of us. She used these patches called the Ion patch, I think it's called AEON. Um, and essentially, these particular patches, there's 10 different patches that this patch helps to de-stress you, bring down anxiety, and basically helps you to relax. And it can also help with some pain relief. And so she went around and put a patch on all of us, but she decided and asked Enmei if she could put a patch on her first because Enmei is so energy sensitive, Badr knew that she would feel it really deeply. And so we got to watch Badr put a patch on Enmei, and she just put it on her neck, I believe, and it starts activating. I mean, it works instantly. It starts working. So we saw, because Enmei is so expressive, we saw as the energy, she could feel the energy starting to move down her body, and she was like, "Whoa, what is happening?" It was hilarious. And so we were just all laughing and she was describing what it felt like. And like, it was just like, it's like, it almost feels like an energetic, well, it does, an energetic current running through your body. Some people can feel it a lot, like Enmei. Some people can't feel it at all, and that's okay. Everybody has a different experience. But because we got to watch Enmei, it was just that much more interesting, right? Because she feels things so deeply. And so then Badr came around and put it on all of us. And there's a couple other people in the group who are also very in touch with their energy. And so most people could feel something. It was fascinating. And so that was just really, really fun. And through that process, I realized, okay, yeah, I'm ready to distribute these because I've had people, especially in the last 10 years, I've had all sorts of different people try to get me to sell things, like whether it be Mary Kay or Monet, the hair stuff. I've had different people who are in marketing, multi-level marketing businesses try to get me to sell whatever it is their product is. And I've always been so turned off by it. I've just been like, no, I can't do this. This isn't for me. It doesn't feel good. That's an immediate no in my body. And so my ego was definitely concerned, like, hey, does this really align with our values? Are we good with this? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, like, this is where I believe the future of healthcare is going. It's frequency and sound. That's the healing that's happening here. And I can get behind this. I can get behind this 110%. There's no chemicals or toxins or any sort of drug in the patch. It's just using your own light. And I love that. And so that's when I decided at the retreat, I was like, all right, Badra, I'm in. I'm selling this now. So I can't wait to tell my friends and family about it. I'm going to have what they consider to be like a launch party. So if you want to be invited to that, you can reach out to me and let me know. I'm going to send an email out through my newsletter. But I'll be doing an online party for people who are across the country, and then I'll be doing an in-person party. And I haven't decided where yet. I might host it at my mom's house if she's cool with that, because she has a bit more space than me. Or I might host it at the local yoga studio if I need more space. So, and if you come in person, my plan is to have patches that you can actually try on there. Like I'm going to give everybody a patch that you can actually put on and experience it. If you come to the online Zoom one, my goal is if I get notification that you're coming by a certain date, I will actually mail you a patch so that you can put it on while we're on Zoom. Because I think that's really key for you to be able to experience it and understand what's happening with your body at the same time. So I wanted to share a bit about that. If you want to know more information, again, go to the link in my description about it, and you can read up on the science behind it and the patents that they've gotten already. It's incredible. Okay, so while Badr was talking about the patches, then we had Keisha show up because she was going to start that afternoon at around 2 o'clock, and so Keisha got to hear the last bit of the talk about the patches and how we were all giggling and laughing, and that was hilarious and like a really good way for her to be introduced to us as a group. Um, and it was really sweet after Badr left and Keisha was starting to chat with us and like asking us more about ourselves. She said something really sweet. She said she walks into a lot of groups and a lot of spaces and she can usually tell, you know, how the group is feeling. Are they in sync? Are they aligned? Or does the energy feel kind of like, we need to create more of a container before we can just jump into breath work? And she said that when she walked in, she was amazed by how in sync we all were. And she was like, it feels like you guys have been meeting on Zoom for years. That is the instant level of comfort that was created. And I loved that she said that. And I agreed with her. And that is my goal always with these retreats. So when someone who comes in from outside can say that and recognize that, I really, really appreciate hearing that. So she started us off in the lunchroom, and we just went around and shared our name and where we were from and a little bit about ourselves and what we wanted to get out of breathwork, which was really nice to go around and actually hear that from everybody because everybody's looking for something different, right? And some people, if they hadn't experienced breathwork like this before, it was going to be a brand new experience for them. So I really loved that. And then the whole session with her was probably about 3 hours. The actual breathing was just 23 minutes long. And then she did some energy work after that. And then we just journaled a couple of questions. But the breath work is always fascinating to me. I always have different responses, and I learned so much through doing it. And so I highly recommend it if you've never done it before. Sometimes nothing happens, sometimes a whole lot happens. And the more you're in tune with your energy and willing to allow the visualizations to come and believe them, which has been part of my process of actually believing that they mean something, the more things happen. So with this breath work, what I noticed was one, she played music with words, which I hadn't had that before, and I actually liked it. Some people didn't, but I find music and the words and the lyrics that people use very motivating and inspiring. It definitely connects to me. And so it was just a lovely environment that she created. And then my body just wanted to shake. Specifically, my legs, my thighs, my lower body just wanted to shake. And I couldn't lay flat on the floor anymore. So I actually put my legs up. I don't know if this is a good visual for those of you on YouTube, but my knees were up in the air and my legs just went like this the entire 23 minutes. They just wanted to shake and let loose. And I don't know if they were shaking out old energy or what it was, but, and then while it was happening, I get all sorts of images. And so I imagined and could see in my head, my mind's eye, my grandmother at my feet, and then Toth, an ascended master who's with me, up by my head, and then fairies on either side of me doing some sort of work on my body. And I was like, cool. And then in the middle of the room, I saw a vortex where anything we wanted to get rid of or toss could be sent and released. Um, and I could hear everybody in the room having their own experience. Some people were laughing, giggling, some people were crying, some were just being in the energy. And then afterwards, as she brought us all back down and had us just laying there and relaxing for a bit, uh, she gave us a couple questions to journal on. And the first one that I remember is, what do you know to be true? believe that was it. And so everybody journaled for a few minutes, and then we shared a little bit about what had happened for us. Um, and it was, yeah, it was beautiful. It was lovely. And then after that, the only other thing I had planned for that day was for us to go to dinner together. And so we went to Cafe Yu in Everett, which is one of my absolute favorite restaurants. And they actually opened that evening just for us. So we had the entire restaurant. A couple other people came in as we were open, but that was the perfect location for our group to just continue to chat and have a good time and relax. And so we all went home that night, and I was just like, I remember thinking, wow, I'm having so much fun, and this is such the perfect group of people, such the perfect group. All right, so day two, we came back Saturday, and that day we had slated to speak Crystal in the morning, Kai in the afternoon. And again, we started off with having Kai clear the space. Again, we call it clearing out the boogers. Basically, because energy can attach to us and does attach to us all the time, she made sure that, again, if anything had attached to us during the night or since we'd been away, that it was cut off and removed. And right off the bat, because we had just been making so many jokes about these patches and how they were making us feel, I knew that I wanted to wear an X39 patch that Badra had accidentally left behind. She actually didn't mean to leave this packet of patches behind, but she did. So I put an X39 on the back of my neck, and I could immediately feel my body start to buzz. It got warm, and I got giggly, and I was just feeling like I just wanted to laugh and jump around. And so another attendee put one on, and we were just giggling and laughing. And I was like dancing around, and I was like, "Can you see my aura? Can you see my aura?" That was the kind of space we were in. It was hilarious. And so Crystal started off her part of the day where she really focused on one, she shared a little bit about herself and her history and how she came to the knowledge that she has today, which I'm so glad that she shared. And I'm gonna share some blips here, like I mentioned. Um, she has learned so much through like the meditation study group she was a part of for 40 years and her own personal study. She shared about hermetic doctrine and how to recognize patterns in yourself from trauma and how that affects your brain and how you process things. And so there was so much information there that I think really helped people to begin to recognize, if they hadn't already, certain things that and maybe patterns that they have in their lives that are actually from trauma and how they could identify that and let it go and release it. And so that was super powerful.
So if you have caregivers that have had trauma, that haven't done any clearing work with themselves or haven't worked with their shadow stuff, you're getting experience with that. And most of the time it's trauma. And because we can't stop it, we're getting programmed with that. And if you are living in an environment that's never safe, then your survival mechanism is always on. It never stops. Our survival mind gets enmeshed with our trauma experience, and we are now walking around all the time like expecting something to happen. So we're hypervigilant, we're on 24 hours a day, and our nervous system is developing. So our whole little bodies are being bombarded, and so it distorts how your nervous system develops. You can end up having CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. And our parents, our caregivers are our world. They're almost like gods. I mean, we are totally dependent on them. So we just can't like pick up our car keys and say, F this, I'm out of here. No, you can't do that. You're stuck. And how do you make sense of someone that you love and that you want to love you who's hurting you at the same time? It's like, we can't. So we start developing behavior responses to our trauma so that we'll be safe. And that can show up as codependency, perfectionism, rescuing, being the caretaker. You might actually turn it back around and be super defiant. You could also, all this is impacting us. And so by age 2 now, the brainstem is growing a little bit, or now your limbic system is coming on board. And the limbic system works with the emotional part of us. So that's the emotional body, is the limbic system. Still definitely rooted in survival.
We took a break again, paused for lunch. And that was, again, a really good time of just connection around the tables in the lunchroom. And then when we came back, Kai set up an energetic playground for us. This was so much fun, you guys. She also shared a little bit in the beginning about her story and how she got to where she is. And she's written a number of different books, which I will also put the link to, both her, Crystalline, and May's information in this podcast description as well. And so she brought her books to share with us to sell. And then for the energetic playground, essentially, she set up four different energy balls. And if you imagine they're like about the size of a basketball, each one had a different color, sound, taste, and texture. And she would put up post-it notes basically in different areas of the room where these balls were, and our job was to go to them, sit in that energy, and see what we got about what we felt. Could we get the color? Could we get the sound? Could we get the smell? Could we figure out the texture? And then she had on the wall in the studio what she called an energetic ladder. The lowest frequency of the ladder was earth energy, and it went all the way up to, I think there were 5 or 6 different levels. The highest one was the lowest frequency of the angelic realm, so really, really high. And then in the other room, in the classroom, she had set up 2 chairs that had really low, dense energy, like at the lowest that your body would allow you to feel safely. And then 2 chairs that had very, very high energy, as high as your body specifically could handle. And then there were 3 chairs that were set up with healing energy. And you could sit, and that energy would go wherever in your body you needed healing. So this was really, really cool. I've never done anything like this before. She also set up something that represented a portal in the middle of the room so we could feel what a portal would feel like. And the whole purpose behind this, which I love, was to get us to begin to recognize when we feel these things out in the world. And again, we can identify what is ours and what is not ours.
Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about that is really important that people who are highly sensitive are not aware of most of the time is that we have an energy signature. And what that means is every single person feels different from everybody else. And the way I describe it is every part in your body, like your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, they're all singing a song that comprises you. So everybody's singing like one part of the harmony of the song that is you. So that's why if you get to the point where your sensitivity is so high, you can close your eyes and feel who walks in the room and be able to name that person. Okay, that's how unique it is. It doesn't matter if you're twins or if you're like siblings or whatever. Like you can pick out people in the crowd. So being an energy sensitive, I can find anyone because of that. Okay? Dead or alive. Okay. So the thing that's really important about energy signature for people who are not me, who is not an energy healer, is that once you understand what your energy signature is, you will be able to determine what is not yours. Because the most important thing about energy signatures is we carry other people's stuff. And once you know what your energy signature is, then you will be able to determine if something is attached to you that is not yours. Okay, that could be an entity, that could be a cord. So an entity in my description is, because I grew up Catholic, I call them demons. But they could be in any kinds of different shapes. I've seen things that look like Godzilla, things that look like lizards, things that I don't even know what to call that thing, kind of stuff that are attached to people. And it could be a ghost that's following you. It could be an old relative that's following you. It could be any number of things that kind of fall into the entity category, in my opinion. And what you want to do is, like, as soon as you feel something different about your energy signature, then you can go, what is that? And if you have the ability, then you can go, get out of here, get off of me. I see you, I recognize you, get off of me. Because what entities count on is us not being able to recognize that they're attached to us. Because what happens is they'll attach to us when they're small and they're weak. And if we don't notice them, they get bigger and bigger and bigger while they feed off of our negative emotions like fear and anger and stuff that we don't want to talk about, like jealousy, all the shadow work type stuff is what they feed off of.
And so everybody went around and we didn't share what we felt. We just took notes as we were doing it. And then we came back together and shared what we felt. Like when I sat in the low density chairs, I feel so much through my emotions. What I noticed was, one, I felt cold. I also felt sad in my heart. I felt sadness and it felt emptiness. Like I envisioned like an empty room. And that was how I interpreted low dense energy. I didn't sit there for very long. Um, then we came back together as a group, and she actually took the energy up a notch. It's amazing how she does this. So she took the energy of everything up a notch so that we could feel it even more deeply. And then we went around again and did that same thing again. And I had this really interesting experience that ended up being a great lesson for me, where I have gotten frustrated in the past as I've been learning about energy healing that I don't feel things as deeply as other energy healers do. Meaning, like an energy healer, some energy healers I know could be in the room and all of a sudden say, "Hey, do you feel that?" Like maybe they feel the energy of my guide Toth, for example. And I'll be like, "No, I don't feel when he's in my presence versus when he's not." I don't always, sometimes, but just not always, and not as deeply, do I feel the energy of other energies. And so I've been really frustrated and sad at times because I feel like, what am I missing? What am I not doing right? Um, am I afraid to feel something? What's going on? Because I've had this desire and I feel like FOMO too, right? Fear of missing out, that I'm doing something that I'm not doing something I could be doing to be a better healer. And also, like, I just kind of want to feel it. And so I had this moment where I was standing at the top of the ladder and I was just looking up the wall and I felt myself start to get teary eyed and frustrated. And so finally, even though I don't always enjoy crying in front of people, I've always tell people it's very normal for me to cry at my own retreats. Because again, I'm experiencing things right alongside all the attendees. That's how I operate. That's how I operate as a leader. That's how I facilitate. Is I'm right there with. I'm also a teacher, but I'm also and I'm an attendee, right? And so I just let myself cry. And Crystal was so kind. She was like, "What's going on? What are you feeling?" And I told her my frustration. And then Kai came in and reminded me, like, "Hey, you don't always want to feel everything." Which is really true. She said, I've worked with people and they have these really big pains or hurts, and to feel that is not fun. And it might not be your gift. Like perhaps that's not what you should focus on. And she was really right. I think sometimes what we feel like, well, in my case, in this instance, what we feel like we're missing out on is just, what if that's not actually something that's meant for us? Um, and so it was this really interesting process of allowing myself to feel my feelings and then realizing like I could let it go. And it was a really good experience for me to have. And so after we were done with the energetic playground, then we went to have dinner at a lovely place called the Frying Lemon Fish, which is a Chinese restaurant in Everett. If you're ever up here, I highly recommend it. It's delicious. And by the end of the night, I knew I was going to sleep really well that night. Um, but as I was getting ready for bed, I was talking to Tom about the day and just telling him how awesome it was. And also about my experience and how I was really disappointed and having FOMO. And he, so wise, and he gets messages all the time. And he was like, "Hey, I just want to give you this message that I'm getting right now." And I was like, "Okay." And he said, "If you're already at that frequency, you're not going to feel it. You're already at a high frequency." And I was like, huh, okay. Now I've been getting this message for myself. I've just known this myself for probably years now, like 5+ years, that I was at a high frequency, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't coming from an egoic place. This is how I operate. When I feel like I know something about myself, I check myself because this is my part of my process of making sure that I have clean energy and that I'm in integrity. And so I said, "Okay, thank you for saying that because I've known this about myself for a long time." But then I really recognized one, like what Kai had said, I don't need to feel everything. It might not be in my purpose to have to feel everything. And two, if I'm already at a high frequency, I'm not necessarily going to feel the frequency that I'm already at, right? Like if I'm on that energetic ladder at the lowest vibration in the angelic realm, if I'm already at that frequency, I'm not going to necessarily feel anything just being in that frequency, right? Does that make sense? So it was a real interesting lesson for me to learn. And yeah, really also validating to have that knowledge myself already and then just hear it from Tom and then also hear it from other people the next day. So that was fascinating. So then we get to day three. And I decided day three, okay, I'm going to take a break from the patch because the other thing about wearing the patches is that they up your frequency, right? Because the energy is flowing more. When you wear these patches, you have to make sure to drink lots of water because you need to be drinking water. Your body has to be hydrated in order for the energy to flow. So I decided, day three, I'm going to pause on the patch um, because we're around so much high energy with the group already that I didn't want to up my frequency, and experience more than my body was really ready for, which I think is what contributed to some of my emotion as well on Saturday. So again, Kai cleared out the boogers that morning, Sunday morning, and everybody shared a bit about where they were at, what they were feeling, which I love checking in, like, and having the night to, sleep on it and have things come up. And someone shared that they had never been at a retreat where we had talked about such deep topics and done so much healing and experienced so much joy. She was like, we have been laughing and giggling this entire time, and I didn't realize that we could talk about this stuff and have joy. I just got chills as I was saying that. And it was just such a reminder to all of us that joy is the antidote, and joy, it is possible, and it is okay, and it is really necessary to bring joy when you can, even in the midst of chaos, right? And so that was really beautiful. Now, Sunday morning was my time slot to speak, which was really interesting to go through this process of what do I want to share. Because most of the time in the past, I have not actually spoken at my retreats. I've been more of the facilitator of the space and the in between activities, the beginning and the end, and the in between the speakers. But this time I knew I was supposed to speak for sure. And I spoke at the last retreat. But this one was different because I really had a bit of a plan, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So when I was talking to someone before the retreat about my speaking slot, she was getting messages. She gets messages all the time. And she was like, oh, my guides are saying, yes, yes, you're supposed to speak. Yes, 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 yes. And I was like, okay, okay, I will, I promise. And she said, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, I don't know yet. And she said, well, what is something that you've wanted to talk about, but you haven't yet? I think that's what you're supposed to talk about. And I was like, all right, well, the first thing that comes to mind is channeling. Because ever since Thoth showed up, this ascended master who is from Egypt and all about the creation of writing, ever since he showed up in my meditations about 2 years ago, I have felt like I can even feel it in my throat now, my throat chakra, like I'm supposed to channel something. And channeling, if you're not familiar with it, can look like a number of different things. The best way that I can explain it right now from my perspective is it's about getting to a certain frequency where you align with energy and it can speak through you. It can sound like someone else's voice, or it can just be like me talking to you right now. This could be channeling. A lot of the times when I speak publicly and on this podcast and I just let myself speak and I don't overthink it, that's me channeling. Essentially, I get messages that I'm supposed to share. That's it. And so I have felt for a long time like I'm a channeler, and I've just wondered if there's more I'm supposed to do with channeling or more that's going to come from me with channeling. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was the energy of money and just my journey with money so far, because I think money is something that we all need to talk about a lot more. So I decided I was going to do something deeply uncomfortable for the first part of my speaker slot. And that was ask the group to just sit with me for a few moments, like a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, in quiet with their eyes closed while I attempt to get into a place where if something wants to channel through me, it can. And the reason this is hard for me is because, one, going back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast, I care a lot about providing people with the value that I said I would. Wow, really feel my throat. And so sitting with a group in silence, not knowing what's going to come out and if it's going to be valuable, really makes me itchy. Like it makes me like, oh gosh, I don't want to waste people's time. Uh, I don't want to do something if it's not going to for sure provide value. I don't know what's going to come out. There's probably some fear there about what wants to channel through me. But I decided, you know what? I'm in this place where I'm in a very safe place with safe attendees, with really incredible, wise women who are practitioners and have been practicing for 40, 50, and 60 years. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to try this anywhere, this is the time and the place to do it. So, and of course, everybody was like, "Oh, sure, Margaret, we'll do whatever." So immediately they closed their eyes, and I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, we're doing this." And so I closed my eyes, and I just, start by taking a couple deep breaths, and I just started speaking about how I have felt for like a long time that I'm meant to channel something, and that whenever I get up to speak, I get super nervous in front of a crowd, or even before I'm going to do a podcast, and I start to sweat and I get really anxious and I feel like I'm going to throw up. And I used to think that was just my nerves. But then I actually learned from a medium that I know that the same thing would happen to her before she gave a reading. And she would get really red. And it was because spirit was coming close to her physically to work with her, talk to her, and channel through her. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening for me. Because after a few minutes, like 10 minutes or so, that feeling, that anxiousness would go away and I would just be on a roll and just be going. But the first couple minutes was always pretty intense. And I would joke with the crowds. Like if I was in front of a crowd of 150 people, I've said plenty of times, hey, everyone, I might throw up in the first 10 minutes, just so you know. It's never happened, but just FYI, I'm that nervous because I like to be honest with people and it helps me to calm down. And so I just started speaking about that. And then I paused after about 3 minutes of just sharing. And I looked at Kai and Enmei and Crystal and I said, can you guys tell me, what do you see? Do you see, is there something that wants to channel with me? And Kai immediately said, oh, yes, there's something I see. And I was like, is it an angel? And she said, yes. It was standing right behind me. And I said, okay. Knowing it's an angel, my perception of angels and how I perceive them is total unconditional love and a very beautiful presence. And so, um, because I have that perception, there's really no fear there. And so I just continued to talk after that. And then I felt the cool thing that I think I noticed about this part was that when they told me to take a couple deep breaths and just let it come through me and see what I wanted to say or what it wanted to say, I closed my eyes again and I was just breathing and I felt kind of light and floaty. And I didn't hear another voice in my head or anything. I just was like, well, what do I want to say? And the first message that came to me was something I've been saying for like 10 years now, which is you are so much more powerful than you realize. And I would say that to every single attendee who used to come to my old, like every retreat I've had, I usually put that in a letter to them or I would say it out loud. And so it's a saying that I've said to them for the last 10 years, which I realized in the last, couple of years that that message was also meant for me. And so that was what I said. That was what came through. But I felt a bit lightheaded. I felt floaty, but it didn't scare me. And I think that was one of the most important things for me to take away from this was, we get things placed in our mind all the time from TV shows, movies, all sorts of things and what I had in my mind about channeling was that it was going to look something kind of like possession. And Kai in particular has been so helpful for this lesson with me is that when you set an intention and you are aware of your energy, nothing is allowed to mess with you. Nothing. It is not allowed. You set that intention, you set boundaries, and you have control. And so I realized, oh, this doesn't feel scary. It's actually, I recognize this feeling. I'm sure I have felt this many times and I just didn't realize what it was. I already had it. And so that was a really interesting experience for me. And I also wanted everyone else, while they had their eyes closed, to pay attention to what they were seeing, hearing, and feeling and share that. So we paused for a moment after that, and people started sharing what they saw. Because I think it's really important for people to see, for you listening here on the podcast too, that this is how I play with my intuition. This is how I learn. This is how I grow. And so we just shared, and I said to them, I want you to recognize that if you think of an angel while you're meditating, that probably means there's one with you. It's as simple as that. And accepting the simplicity of it and just sitting with that knowledge of, I know this is true. Because I think one thing that's been interesting for me that I like sharing with my clients and in my journey is that my claircognizance, my clear knowingness has been one of my strongest abilities, meaning I don't see angels with my physical eyes or even in my third eye when I close my eyes. I get images in my imagination, and that's how I just know they're there. I don't necessarily always feel them either. It has taken me years to accept that what I know to be true is real. And so I really wanted to emphasize that for people that when they have these images go through their head, it means something. And to recognize that truth that even if you don't see it with your own eyes or you don't get a great visual in your mind, it doesn't mean it's not real. And so then Enmei jumped in and she was starting to share with someone about how they mostly receive messages through, so there's these 5 different ways she talks about that you receive intuitive messages through your physical, mental, financial, spiritual. What am I missing? Physical, mental, spiritual, financial, emotional. And so she was saying to someone, you are a physicalist and an emotionalist, meaning she receives messages through her body from her intuition and through her emotions. And certain people have different strengths, right? So then she just started going around and basically giving all of us mini readings. And this was super powerful. She went through and shared with us, okay, here's how you receive messages. And then she like gave additional messages alongside that. So that turned into something really beautiful. Um, it was amazing. All right, so then I actually had asked Tom to come in on Sunday because I wanted him to share a little bit about his journey with unplugging from fear. So he arrived almost before lunchtime and got to hear the last couple of messages about 2 of the attendees. And he was actually able to help with one of the messages, which was cool. And then we went on lunch break. And when we got back from lunch, Tom shared his journey. He shared the story about when he had the toy store on Hewitt Avenue in downtown Everett, and he got the message to leave. He had gotten a vision the morning actually before his store flooded. It's when the pipes were frozen and it flooded that day, and he ended up leaving that storefront after that. He shared that whole story, which was really cool. Because again, confirmation that you actually get messages oftentimes as a heads up before things happen. And that has happened for him on several occasions. So he shared that story and then he left. And then I started the afternoon off by talking about my money story, which I really wanted to share about how my relationship with money has evolved over the last 5 years with my business. And I felt really important for me to talk about that because money, I really like striking this balance between talking about things that are very much grounded in this 3D reality, right? Like this cup I have here, or things you can see with your eyes that maybe compared to someone like Kai and Crystal and Enmei who can see things outside of the 3D realm, right? I really like talking about things like money and then the energy of money, which we can't see, quote unquote, right? Because this helps people who sometimes can get stuck in these ruts of feeling like they can't affect change in their life. And for me, focusing on money over the last 5 years has been crucial to me, not only healing my relationship with money, but really also bettering my relationship with energy and believing in it. Because how I felt about money, which was based on conditioning growing up and things like that, how I felt about money actually also impacted my relationship with energy. So I shared a lot about that, which was really cool. And again, it became really clear to me. And I think Kai also said something about this because I asked a question like, why do people who have poor intentions have a lot of money? This still doesn't make sense to me. And she said, it's not about whether a person's good or bad. It's about, are you on the frequency of money? And now I've heard this before, right? But then she continued to talk and something just really clicked for me. She said, if you think about people who have a lot of money, they don't lack self-esteem a lot of the time, or they don't lack confidence. They are confident, they make decisions with clarity and intention, and they take action. But if you are coming from a place of where you don't have confidence in what you're doing and you do things with kind of like a wishy-washy energy, that's not the frequency of money. And so all of a sudden it's really started to click that your intention and the confidence with which you move forward affects the frequency that you're on. And so it was just a great addition to what I had talked about with money. So then Kai did something really cool. She led us through an exercise on releasing rage. And she had gotten this basically this process from her guides of where she lowered the frequency in the room to the frequency of rage so that we could feel what it feels like. And then she said, now close your eyes and see where you feel it in your body. And maybe you just get a flash of an image. And I just knew right away because I didn't, again, sometimes I don't feel things the same. I got an image of my lower back and I got an image of this spot on my head. So I didn't feel it, but that's what I saw. And then she said, okay, surround those spots in white light and then imagine them going down and out through your feet and back down to Mother Earth through the floor. And so she helped us release the rage from our bodies. It was incredible. Again, this is just one of the ways in which you can do that, but it was a really cool activity to do. Then we ended the retreat that Sunday afternoon by doing individual healings. So at the same time, Enmei, Kai, and Crystal all worked on us one at a time, which was incredible. And then a couple of us worked on Enmei, and then Kai, and then Crystal. So all the practitioners also got worked on. So it was just phenomenal way to end because when you have three healers working on you at the same time that all have different skills, they can target different things. So it was amazing. It was just and it was, how do you end a weekend like this? um, it was just incredible. And so we got back together as a group and Enmei really kind of closed us out. I can't even remember some of the parting words that she said, but I was thinking to myself, this sounds so perfect. Thank you. Because I really didn't know what to say other than like, oh my God, my mind is blown. My mind is blown. Um, and so she closed it out for us. And then we went to this place called Tacos and Beer in Everett that has fabulous Mexican food. And we all ate there. And I didn't know if people were going to have the energy to go or if some people were going to have to leave, but everybody came. We were having such a freaking good time. We went out for like 2 hours for dinner and then came back to the studio and people helped me clean up. I was like, what is happening? I mean, people have offered to help me clean up in the past, but this, again, it felt so easy. And I was home. Tom and I were home by probably 8:30 or 9. So the whole thing just blew my mind from start to end. And I think what sticks out to me, which you've heard me mention, is how we were all able to connect and feel safe enough to share very vulnerable things in a very short amount of time. The LifeWave patches were a hilarious addition that I didn't expect, and it was just fun. So much energy was cleared for all of us. Old contracts broken, cords released, new energy poured into us with intention that we've all shifted dramatically in just this short amount of time, and the shifts are still taking place this week. And so I'm really curious. We're going to meet, usually have us meet as a group about 2 weeks after the retreat, just because a lot of things happen when you try to integrate this back into your everyday life, right? And so I want to check in with everybody and see how they're doing. And then the other theme I really feel walked away with was intention is it. Now, I often say intention is everything, but I just wanted to say it a different way. Intention and frequency is it. What you intend is what happens. Whether you have an intention or not is what you need to think about. So oftentimes people go around and they just, I'm going to go have lunch with this friend or I'm going to go clean my house. And they do it without a specific intention in mind. Now that's fine. Start to play with that. Because if you intend to do something with joy, let's say, or I intend to go to this lunch and be open and vulnerable with my friend, it changes everything. Intention and then your frequency is what is creating your life around you. And that, more than anything, is what was emphasized to me this entire weekend. And then trust is key. Everything's happening for a reason. Everything is happening with purpose. Trust. Okay, so the last thing on my list is to answer a question that came to me from Instagram. I probably didn't give people enough time because I just posted it this morning when I got up, at 5 a.m. I think I posted it at like 8, and then I'm recording this within a couple hours. So if you guys have other questions that have come up during this, please feel free to reach out to me. I love sharing this kind of stuff on my social media because it helps other people. So the question that came through Instagram for me was, what's something you definitely want people to know who have never done a retreat? What is something you definitely want people to know who have never done a retreat? What I would say, and I'm speaking just to these retreats that I've put together, other people and how they host retreats, it all matters what you feel called to. Again, I would follow that calling, following what your intuition says. What I would want them to know is that if you feel a little bit of fear over coming to a retreat and not knowing anybody or not knowing exactly what's going to happen, or you see me sharing about this retreat and you feel called, but you don't know why, and you're a little afraid to do it, or you're afraid to spend the money on it, that is a sign to do it. That feeling could actually be, and probably is, excitement. Your soul has recognized something that it wants to do, and it's saying, hey, please, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so sometimes that fear of feeling like, oh my God, is this going to be crazy? Again, you have to know, I'm speaking just to myself and the retreats that I host, that I create a safe container and that the experience that you have, I am going to do everything in my power, along with my speakers, to provide you with the information and the knowledge that you need to leave the retreat and be able to create big shifts in your life, to get unstuck, to unplug from whatever fear you might have been plugged into for a long time so that you can make decisions from a place of your heart and soul. And so don't hesitate to step through that fear and say yes, because the experience is so worth it. It is so precious and it's such a beautiful time. And it is my mission and my passion to connect with people. And so I, I just love connecting folks and helping people see that we all have something to offer. And so you will feel within a matter of minutes connected to the other people in the room, even if you've never met them. It's the most beautiful thing to witness. It's really, really cool. That's what I would say. Now, I had mentioned at the beginning that I had two special announcements for the end. And so that is one, like I've mentioned, I'm selling Lightwave. And so if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out if you want to experience it or come to my launch party. I'll let you know when that is. And then the other one is because of how this retreat went and how good I felt afterwards, I'm doing something that I've never done before, which is I'm setting the date for another retreat within the next 6 months. It was literally the day after where I kept getting this message of set another date, set another date, set another date. So I was like, okay, I actually am open to doing that. Usually after a retreat, I'm so exhausted that I can't imagine planning another one and I have to give myself like a year or 6 months off. This time, though, I was like, no, something about this tells me there are people who are watching who want to attend, and I'm supposed to set another date in the next 6 to 8 months. All right, you guys, I just finished recording this podcast, and as soon as I got off, I got confirmation on the dates of the next retreat. So it will be February 27th through March 1st. Again, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I wanted to hop back on and share this message. I literally squealed when I read it. So those dates there'll be a link here in the description straight to the webpage where you can go ahead and book your ticket. And it will be with the same three speakers this time. So Enmei Mangels, Kai Bertrand, and Crystal Novak. All right. I just had to come back on and share because the dates got confirmed. So book your tickets, save your spot. Want to see you there. I'm super excited. Hey everyone, before I end this episode, I'd like to share a couple of the testimonials from the speakers and attendees of the retreat. So here you go.
So I'm going to have to plead guilty to being one of those people that gets like really nervous with videos. But I could not help myself from being really, really happy when Mo asked me to do a testimonial about the Unplug From Fear Retreat. I'm a little on the later side doing my review because life has been crazy and puppies. But it has given me a chance to like road test all of the techniques and all of the things I've learned. Without a doubt, it was the best retreat I've ever been on. Not only did I meet amazing people who were like-minded, We had a chance to laugh, uh, a chance to support each other through the tough spots, a chance to learn new things, and also some incredible experiences being taught by um, unbelievable teachers. And I can't wait to have a reunion of sorts, and I'm hoping we'll have one. Actually, I think it's one scheduled in a few days by video, and kind of go over some of the things that we've learned in the process. I tried to sum it up in a few words. The first thing is perspective. I've gotten some perspective in seeing how what I learned has fit into my life by waiting like a week and a half to do this review. So that has been the most wonderful thing, because I've seen kind of firsthand all of the wonderful effects of changing my perspective and changing my attitude. And the biggest thing is, wow, fear can really wreck your life. Even if you think it's something that's a little thing and, oh, yeah, I'm just a little fearful about that. It really filters everything that you do. And unplugging from fear is like taking off this horrible filter that only lets you see right in front of you. And all of a sudden, you've got the whole horizon. You've got endless possibilities, endless options, and the world is just kind of your oyster. So it has allowed me to make decisions with confidence and calmness and surety that I probably would not have made nearly so easily. And also know that those were the right decisions for me at the time. So unplugging for fear has given me perspective. It has given me clarity. It has given me a surety that, yeah, not only are these the right decisions that I'm making, but also that the universe and all of my guides and ancestors are supporting me. So I have felt really cared for both during the retreat and after, as I'm kind of getting to know my energetic body, energetic family a little more closely. And I just say thank you to all of my classmates. I enjoyed hanging with you. Best of gratitude, most gratitude to all of my teachers that were there, because it was just an amazing experience. I hope we get a chance to get together all again for another retreat. But wow, this was amazing. And thanks again, Mo, for making it all happen. So unplug from fear, best thing I could have ever done.
Hi, I'm Ann May. I've just returned from a Unplug from Fear retreat with Mo Smith and an incredible group of travelers. I was so honored to be one of the many speakers that were attending, as well as providing new information to our attendees about developing your own intuitive strength and trusting that intuitive strength. Something that ourselves as energy healers forget to do is to self-care. So attending in one of Mo's formats is to also self-care the speakers, the ones who give every day as a personal advisor or business advisor. We too receive from each other, and the exchange is enormously bouncing and vibrant and revealing. For energy healers, I really recommend coming to an unplug. Most events will allow you to feel nourished and recharged. I mean, it's been a week and I'm feeling pretty amazing. And I have a very full schedule the rest of this year. So please join me. Please be there. Your heart will thank you. Your family will thank you. I can tell you that. We'll see you there. Thank you.
I'm Kai, and I attended the Unplug from Fear event in Everett, Washington in September. I was asked by Mo Smith from iloveitwhen.org to be a speaker. The event turned out to be even better than I anticipated. During those 3 days, we dealt out tissues like playing cards at a poker game. We also doubled over with laughter. The stuttering voice of pain, the growl of frustration, and the shouts of joy. We had it all. We were seen, heard, accepted, and supported. Friendships were forged in fire. Strangers became family. It was intense and fun and powerful, and we're gearing up to do it again. Next time, join us.
Hi, my name is Crystal Novak. I am a psychic reader and energy worker, and I wanted to offer my testimonial about being a speaker at a retreat held by Margaret Smith of I Love It When, that was held recently in Everett, Washington. It was phenomenal. That is the most amazing retreat I've ever been to. There was literally instant bonding in our group. People were open about sharing what their concerns and fears were. There was a lot of laughter, a lot of introspection, but the overall feeling was euphoric, deeply grounded, deeply healing, to the place where everybody wanted to do it again the next week. In answer to that, Mo is going to offer this retreat again at the end of February this coming year. I think you might want to attend.
Hi, I'm hopping on to share my experience on the Unplug From Fear Retreat with Mo. This past weekend that she hosted in Everett, Washington. The space was beautiful. Every detail was there. She planned this retreat, wow, from the beginning of the day to the end. Each and every piece was so pertinent, and the speakers and practitioners that she brought in were all so good at their practice. The people on the retreat, it was just one of, always with her, the right people are in the room, and it was the most self-work I think I've ever done, the deepest dive I've done with myself. It was exactly what it said, unplug from fear, and we dove right into what those fears were. And I have not been able to let myself go there, and I really attribute that to the safety that I felt of the practitioners that she chose and her herself. The overall experience, life-changing. Nothing will be the same. We cried a lot in that weekend. We did not just cry a lot, though. We also laughed a lot. There was so much healing done, and just how we all came out of it was lighter, truer, and I feel like for the first time, I finally fully see who I am, accept who I am, and yeah, I was able to unplug from fear for sure. So I can't say enough good things about Mo or the work that she does. I know that the hardest part is choosing it for yourself, but you will have no regrets. And I think we all came out of that weekend, at least I know I came out of that weekend so excited just to go back into life, feeling lighter, really unstoppable, and just clear. So yeah, if this is something that you're thinking about, I think you saw her video or this for a reason. So definitely connect with her and unplug from fear. Take this chance for yourself.
I can guarantee you the shift and the change that you'll experience from this event will ripple for a long time in your life. And if you've been drawn to what I've talked about in this episode and you feel pulled, then it's for a reason. So I'm so excited, you guys. I'm so excited. Oh, it feels so good. So, so good. All right. Again, welcome back to the I Love It When podcast. I'm super excited to be back and to bring you some new episodes over the next few months. please feel free to share a clip from this episode and tag me. I love it when you guys do that. And if you have any questions that pop up from this episode, do not hesitate to reach out. I was really happy to share everything that I shared with you today about what happened at the retreat. And I hope that it gives you a bit more of a picture into what it's like to attend. All right. I look forward to talking with all of you soon, and have a lovely rest of your week. See you at the next retreat.